Good morning, students. Today's topic is complications of sinusitis. As long as infection is confined only to the sinus mucosa, it is called sinusitis. Complications starts when infection spreads into or beyond the bony wall of the sinus. It can be broadly divided in acute or chronic and local or distant. Complications of paranasal sinus infections may be local. In local, like mucocele or mucopyocele, then mucus retention cyst, osteitis and osteomyelitis. In frontal bone, it's called Pott's Puffy tumor, and it also be in maxilla. In orbital complications, there are pre-septal inflammatory edema of leads, subperiosteal abscess, orbital cellulitis, orbital abscess, superior orbital fissure syndrome, and orbital apex syndrome. Third is intracranial complications, in which meningitis, extradural abscess, subdural abscess, brain abscess, and cavernous sinus syndrome is common. Then comes the descending infection, in which otitis media, pharyngitis and tonsillitis, persistent laryngitis and tracheobronchitis and even bronchiectasis. Others are dental complications due to dental infection and focal infections. The acute and local complications such as mucocele, orbital, intracranial and bony are more common, and we will be discussed more here. So first we talk about mucocele of paranasal sinuses. So this is chronic cyst of sinuses and are lined with the pseudostratified or low coronary epithelium containing few goblet cells. These round or oval cysts grow concentrically and expand very slowly over years. The sinuses commonly affected in order of frequency are frontal, ethmoidal, maxillary and sphenoidal. Pyocele is similar to mucocele, but its contents are purulent due to infection of the mucocele. There are two views in the genesis of a mucocele. The first is chronic obstruction to sinus ostium, resulting in accumulation of secretions which slowly expands the sinus and destroys its bony wall. Second view is cystic dilatation of mucus gland of the sinus mucosa due to obstruction of its ducts. The contents of mucocele are sterile. Mucocele of the frontal sinus now. So usually present in the superomedial quadrant of the orbit. In about 90% of cases, but 10% may present as swelling at forehead bone. Patient may complain of headache, diplopia, proptosis. The eyeball is displaced forward, downward, and laterally. The swelling is cystic, non-tender, and egg cell crackling may be elicited. Radiograph of the frontal sinus usually reveals clouding of the sinus with sclerosis of surrounding skull and loss of scalloping outline of frontal sinus. The treatment is surgical. There is removal of the mucocele by frontoethmoidectomy or endoscopic marsupialization into the nasal cavity. Now, mucocele of ethmoidal sinus. It may appear as expansion of medial wall of the orbit, thus displacing the eyeball forward and lateral. There may be bulging in the middle meatus of the nose also. The treatment is uncapping the bulge and free drainage into the nose by endoscopic intranasal operation. Sometimes external ethmoidectomy operation is also needed. Now, mucocele of maxillary sinus. So, it may cause due to chronic sinus inflammation, polyp, tumor, or trauma in middle meatus. When its ostium is blocked, cavity is filled with mucus and bony wall gets expanded gradually. CT scan and MRI helps in diagnosis. Mucus retention cyst usually does not cause bone erosion. It is asymptomatic and detected incidentally by radiography. No treatment is generally required because it is asymptomatic but can be aspirated by enteral puncture through inferior meatus or canine fossa approach. It may regress spontaneously even over a period of time. Now come to mucocele of sphenoidal sinus. It may arise from slow expansion and destruction of sphenoid and posterior ethmoidal sinuses. Clinical features may result with headache, Headache may be in occipital or in vertex region. Then deep nasal pain, diplopia, visual field disturbance, and eyeball displacement. So these are the clinical features. Then exophthalmos is always present and the pain is localized to the orbit or forehead. Radiograph confirms the diagnosis. Slow expansion may lead to destruction of sphenoid and posterior ethmoid sinuses. Endoscopic sinus surgery. Anterior wall of sphenoid sinus is removed. Cyst wall uncapped and fluid content evacuated. This operation requires endoscopic surgery and conventional operation is replaced by these operations like ethmoidectomy with sphenoidotomy. Now come to other complications like osteitis and osteomyelitis. So osteitis means infection of compact bone, while osteomyelitis is an infection of bone marrow, that is spongy or cancellous bones. Osteomyelitis can either of maxilla or of frontal bone. So first, osteomyelitis of maxilla. It is more common in infants and children in the anterior wall of the maxilla. Infection usually starts in the dental sac and spreads into the maxilla. Clinical features includes erythema, swelling of cheek, edema of lower lid, purulent nasal discharge, and fever. Later, abscess and fistula forms in infraorbital region. Alveolus, palate, or in zygomai. Sequestration of bone can occur. Treatment consists of large dose of antibiotics, drainage of abscess, and removal of sequester. Osteomyelitis of maxilla may cause damage to temporary or permanent tooth buds. Maldevelopment of maxilla, oroentral fistula, persistently changing is there and causing draining sinus or epiphorium. Osteomyelitis of frontal bone. It is more common in adults because frontal sinus is not developed in infants and in children. It usually results from acute infection of frontal sinus, which may be direct through thrombophlebitis, trauma, and even surgery. If abscess develops over anterior surface of frontal sinus, and results in the swelling of overlying soft tissue. This subperiosteal abscess is called Pott's puffy tumor. If pus is formed internally, it causes extradural abscess. Treatment is large dosage of antibiotics, drainage of abscess, and refining of frontal sinus through its flow. It also requires removal of sequestra and necrotic bone with osteoplastic flap through a coronal incision. The next important complications we should know about the orbital complications. Orbit and its contents are closely related to the ethmoid, frontal and maxillary sinuses. But most of the complications are due to infection of ethmoids, as they are separated from the orbit only by a thin lamina of bone, that is lamina papyracea. Infections from sinuses travel either by osteitis or thrombophlebitis. Orbital complications are: number one, only inflammatory edema of legs, where edema of eyelid leads to orbital abscess formation. It involves only pre-space. Eyeball movements and vision are normal. Generally, upper lid is swollen in frontal, lower lid in maxillary, and both lids in ethmoidal sinusitis. Second is periosteal abscesses. So, in this condition, the pus collects outside the medial wall of the orbit under the periosteum and displace the eyeball forward, downward, and laterally. In frontal sinusitis, abscess is situated just above and behind the medial canthus and displaces the eyeball downward and lateral. In cases of maxillary sinusitis, abscess forms in the floor of the orbit and displaces the eyeball upward and forward. Next is orbital cellulitis. When pus breaks through the periosteum, goes into the orbit and spreads between the orbital fat, extraocular muscles, vessels, and nerves. Clinically, high fever, edema of the lids, exophthalmos, chemosis of conjunctiva, and restricted movement of the eyeball with partial or total loss of vision is found. It is diagnosed as there is facilities of CT scan nowadays. It is dangerous condition as there is a risk of meningitis and cavernous sinus thrombosis. The next is orbital abscess. So intra-orbital abscess usually forms along lamina papyracea or floor of frontal sinus. So clinical picture is similar to that of orbital cellulitis leading to abscess formation. CT scan and ultrasound of the orbit should be done to diagnose the case. Then comes the superior orbital fissure syndrome. The infection of the sphenoid sinus can affect structures of superior orbital fissures. Deep orbital pain, frontal headache, and progressive paralysis of 6th, 3rd, and 4th cranial nerves in order. First the 6th is involved, then 3rd, then 4th. And ophthalmic division of 5th cranial nerve is also involved. The next orbital complication is orbital apex syndrome. Due to extension of infection up to orbital apex, all the features of superior orbital fissure syndrome, along with additional involvement of optic nerve, that is second cranial nerve, and maxillary division of trigeminal nerve also occurs. The treatment includes high dose of injectable antibiotics with anti-inflammatory analgesics. In orbital abscess, drainage of the abscess is also required. Now come to intracranial complications. So, despite the progress of medical treatment of sinuses, a spread of infection of sinuses causes intracranial complications sometimes. The cavity of sinuses are closely related and separated by a thin wall of bone from the interior cranial fossa. The roofs of the ethmoid cells extends upwards into the frontal bone through cribriform plate and crista galli. Infection may spread to meninges by erosion of bone, by pressure within the sinuses, by osteitis, or through the veins in the bone. Intracranial complications are meningitis and encephalitis. First, acute infection enters the anterior cranial fossa will produce a localized or generalized meningitis and deeper infection causing encephalitis. High fever with intense headache, with vomiting, pain in back, and stiffness of the neck occurs. consciousness will be affected with clouding and later unconsciousness even. Neck rigidity, head retraction and positive Kernick sign makes the diagnosis. Papilledema and decreased pupillary reaction may occur later. Bilumbar puncture and culture, you can know the bacteria responsible for. Next is extradural abscess. So the bone is gradually eroded by a chronic sinusitis, may allow pus to collect between the dura mater and the bony skull wall. So this is extradural space. So abscess formed in this space is called extradural abscess. So aspiration and proper antibiotic therapy should be done here. Drainage of the pus of infected sinus also needs. Then the subdural abscess. So there is extension of suppuration inwards will produce an abscess between the dura mater and the brain, that is subdural space. Pyrexia, high fever, fits and localized neurological signs are present as clinical features. Immediate aspiration of the abscess and antibiotics are necessary to prevent permanent damage to the brain. Next is intracerebral or brain abscess. It is an abscess forms gradually deeper in the brain tissue. Earlier sign may be drowsiness, headache, fever and apathy. Localized signs do not appear early, but fits and papilledema will appear as the abscess develops. Treatment is in other abscesses, that is aspiration and antibiotic in first instance and drainage of the abscess in later stage. Now the most dangerous, you can say, complication is cavernous sinus syndrome. Here there is a chart or figure, you can say, by which we can see the cavernous sinus relations and contents. So just you see in this photograph, there is sphenoidal air sinuses. In close proximity to that there is cavernous sinus, both sides. The important structures are internal carotid artery along with abducent nerve. Then other nerves are important like oculomotor nerve, that is third cranial nerve. This is trochlear nerve, that is fourth cranial nerve. They are close relation with the sinuses. Then comes to the ophthalmic nerve here. Then this is your maxillary nerve, that is the fifth nerve both. Then mandibular division of the fifth here. So all these important structures are closely related with sphenoidal sinus here. As in figure, I have already told you that the venous cavernous sinus lies in both sides of the sphenoidal bone, in which two sphenoid sinuses are there. Tributaries of the cavernous sinus are the pharyngeal plexus, supraorbital angular ophthalmic veins, various central veins, sphenoparietal central retinal veins, and petrosal venous sinuses. Cavernous sinus thrombosis can result from infection in the orbit, on the face, on the or in the paranasal sinus. So the middle ear infection extends to cause petrositis. The middle ear infection extends to cause petrositis, can also cause cavernous sinus thrombosis later on. The valveless nature of the veins connecting the cavernous sinus cause early spread of infection from the sinus. Clinical features are acute illness, high fever with rigor and chills, eyelids swelling with chemosis and proptosis of eyeball, cranial nerve third, fourth and sixth, which are related with the cavernous sinus, get involved individually and later cause total ophthalmoplegia. Pupil becomes dilated and fixed. Optic disc shows congestion and edema with diminished vision. Sensation in the distribution of ophthalmic diminished. CSF is usually normal. CT scan is very useful to diagnose. Treatment needs IV antibiotics, drainage of sinuses and orbital decompression. Hyperonization slows progression of the thrombosis, but role is not very clear. The difference between orbital cellulitis and cavernous sinus thrombosis is very essential to know, and this has been shown by this table. Just you see the orbital cellulitis and cavernous sinus thrombosis. Different headings are there, like in source. In orbital cellulitis, commonly ethmoidal sinus is involved, while in cavernous sinus thrombosis, nose, sinuses, orbit, ear, and pharynx. The infection from all these sites may cause cavernous sinus thrombosis. Then comes the onset and progress. So in orbital cellulitis it is very slow, while in cavernous sinus thrombosis it is abrupt. Then cranial nerve involvement. So involvement of cranial nerves with complete ophthalmoplegia, while in cavernous sinus thrombosis there is involvement individually and progressively. So far sight is concerned, in orbital cellulitis usually it involves affected side of the eye, while in cavernous sinus thrombosis involves both of the eyes. Regarding taxemia, it is orbital cellulitis, it is absent while it is present in cavernous sinus thrombosis. Fever, there is fever in orbital cellulitis also, but in cavernous sinusitis it is high fever with chills. So far motility is concerned, orbital cellulitis having very less motility, while cavernous sinus thrombosis it is very high. So far dental complications is concerned, the root of upper second premolars and first molar lie in close proximity to a well-developed maxillary sinus, which is separated by a thin layer of bone. During extraction, even with care, sometimes it may result in an oroentral fistula, leading to maxillary sinus infection. So in this condition, surgical repair should be done and immediately protected by dental plate. Another complication is descending infections. So in suppurative sinusitis, discharge constantly flows into the pharynx and can cause pharyngitis and tonsillitis. Hypertrophy of lateral lymphoid bands behind the posterior pillars is indicative of chronic sinusitis. It may also cause recurrent tonsillitis and granular pharyngitis. Persistent laryngitis and tracheobronchitis may be caused by these descending infections. It may be associated with recurrent laryngitis and bronchiectasis also. Otitis media through Stygian tube infection may travel to middle ear. Another focal complications. So the role of infection acts as focus of infection, and this is doubtful, but it has been found that the conditions like polyarthritis, tenosynovitis, fibrositis, and certain skin diseases may respond to elimination of infection in the sinuses. Due to advancement in the treatment facilities and consciousness of the patients, awareness of the patient for the treatment, the complications are very less nowadays. So this is a brief about the complication of sinusitis. Thank you.